Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.
You're listening to the Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Vacula, here to help you travel the world at next to no cost with credit card points, miles, benefits, and loyalty programs. Make money, save money, and take advantage of great deals. Thanks for joining me for today's episode, Emerald Princess Europe Cruise Trip Report. Visit meetup.com/Philly miles and points to RSVP for monthly Greater Philadelphia travel. Credit miles and points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The next meetups are May 17th and June 22nd, 2025. Find a link in the show notes. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Subscribe to Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on YouTube, where you can also become a channel member for daily content, including travel videos, podcast clips, community, and bonus content. Welcome back to the show, Darren.
Thanks, Justin. Great to be back. And all our listeners, I know you've been traveling again, and I can't wait to get back into it, hear all the things you've been up to.
Yes, gone for about 2 weeks and now back in Pennsylvania.
How many hours after you landed did you load your first online casino?
Oh, I was extremely tired, so I went to sleep around 10 p.m. and played the next day for sure. Don't want to be gambling in a tired state.
It's a good reminder, everybody. Not for lack of interest. You were making good decisions to make sure that your bets were solid, your EV was positive, all the things.
All the things, yes. And back from Princess Cruises, and it wasn't only Princess. I went to Boston, flew to London, flew from London to Rome, stayed in Rome, and then went on the cruise. So this is a good opportunity to break down that entire trip.
I can't wait to hear about your quote unquote free cruise that you flew all the way over to Europe to take. I know a lot of folks that are not in the travel hacking world would be like, how can you get a free cruise if you have to fly to Europe to start with? But we both know the vacation can start for free or close to free in the airport lounge. Let's start there. What lounges did you take advantage of on this big trip, Justin?
In Philadelphia, I went to the Chase Sapphire Lounge. At this point, I don't see going to the Delta or the Amex lounges in Philadelphia at all. Hang out in the Chase Lounge. It's the special QR code made to order menu and the buffet that's out there. Lots of drinks, lots of space. It's a really great place to hang out. So as usual, I get to the airport early and partake in the Chase Lounge. So that was nice. On the exit, this time it was for breakfast. I went to the lounge for breakfast and I flew to Boston, stayed in Boston for 2 nights. And this time I wanted to give myself additional wiggle room because I had a past trip. I was supposed to go to South Korea and it was a flight from Philadelphia to Detroit and Detroit to South Korea, but that Philadelphia to Detroit flight got canceled. So the whole trip was canceled. So I figured, okay, I'll stay in Boston for 2 nights just in case there's any problems with the flight going there's any delay. I don't want to cut it too close and lose the cruise.
Yeah, as positioning flights can be problematic if you can't make them. It becomes really challenging if there are different PNR. I know a lot of folks have run into that. And so a lot of discussion about what's an appropriate amount of time. And of course, depends on how far you're going and what your options are. So glad you made this one. And I know you were also, for those of you that watch, those of our listeners that also listened to a previous podcast and YouTube episode, you got to meet up with a certain train enthusiast when you were in Boston.
That's right. We've been building up to it for a while, but the meetup indeed happened with Purple Princess Pari. We met at the Hyatt Regency Boston Harbor, where I stayed, and recorded a conversation. So you can listen to that as a previous episode or watch the video as I took my Insta360 X4 camera. So it was a really good discussion. Cool to meet her in person. Hung out after, went to dinner, hung around the harbor area. So it was a really good opportunity. a little bit of a bonus out of this whole cruise
Absolutely.
experience. A big
Absolutely.
bonus.
And remind us, Justin, where did you get that camera that you've been using and for videotaping lately?
Ooh, it's the Dell credits from the American Express
It's the
Business
Dell
Platinum
credits.
card.
That's like a drink. Someone's out there is drinking. And the Dell credits.
Yes, Dell credits for good this time, rather than people talking about buying all these LED lights and just making their TV look pretty.
Indeed.
So that conversation went really well. It's up as an audio podcast and it's up as a video on the Hurdy Gurdy Travel YouTube channel. Listeners can check that out if they didn't already. And the cruise, by the way, you were talking about it being free or comped. In this case, I had an offer match as I went to a meetup with the Point Me to New York group, and someone had said, hey, Princess is doing an offer match promotion. You can email Princess and they will match another cruise offer. So I sent what I believe was my MGM Platinum status cruise. That was a balcony cruise with Celebrity. And Princess said, hey, we'll give you a balcony cruise as well. So originally it was supposed to be a 10-day British Isles cruise, but weeks later, they sent an email saying that they had to cancel the cruise because of a problem with the ship. The ship needed to be docked for maintenance. So they said that now you can pick a different cruise, and they're throwing in $1,000 in free play as a gesture of kindness or inconvenience, as they were saying. We'll get into that later. And they were willing to reimburse some flight change costs. Not too much. I think it was only about $250. So instead of the British Isles cruise, I went with this European Explorer cruise. So I had to pay taxes and fees, which was a few $100s, and I purchased the Princess Premier package. At the time, I believe it was somewhere around $60 a day, but it since went up, which included Wi-Fi, gratuities, digital and print photos, complimentary drinks up to $20, and some other benefits. So a few $100s for the taxes, fees, a little bit for the package. And I thought this package was great value because I'd otherwise be paying for gratuities, paying for Wi-Fi on 2 devices. So this was the only cruise package that I had ever purchased. So I thought the Princess offer was pretty good. Originally it was supposed to be the British Isles, but then it ended up being a European Explorer cruise out of Rome.
I think one of those things where we talk about free travel, but a lot of times we can find deals that are at a deep discount. And I think folks sometimes get stuck on, if it's not free, I'm not interested, or I only want to generate points when they're free and I'm not interested in the discounted points. But I think this is another great example of something that would have been probably thousands of dollars from a retail perspective, and you were able to get at a deep discount, do some travel into some places you hadn't been before, and allegedly you were going to get $1,000 free play on top. Now we'll get into that, how that worked out.
Spoiler.
But yeah, it sounds good. Remind us how you flew there and what kind of miles you used, all that kind of good stuff.
Yes, I got a good tip that Etihad Airways, sharing with JetBlue, had availability to go to London. So it was a flight from Boston to London for about 75,000 membership rewards points. So that's Amex points. I transferred to Etihad and I was able to book the JetBlue flight through Etihad. Unfortunately, using JetBlue points directly, the rate was a lot higher. It's really strange to me still that for some reason you're using far fewer points with these partners, but it happened to be the case. So it was $75K one way, and I booked the return. I booked them separately rather than a round trip in case there's an issue with one. It'll probably be easier to resolve. I think that's the best practice here with booking these flights. So 150K MR, it would otherwise cash out 1 cent per point at $1,500. But since last year had lots of opportunities, I reached my cash out maximum for the year of the 1 million MR, a little flex there. So I put the points to use and went to Europe. As past podcast guest Justin Walter suggested, I go on international trips and not focus so much on the domestic. So having gone on many Caribbean cruises, gone on Northeaster cruises, I went to Alaska. I've done a lot of the domestic cruising. So I was looking for different opportunities in Europe.
To quote a famous meme, Justin, why not both? It sounds like this was really a good itinerary.
Yes, I had to book another flight, though, was part of the problem here. So I couldn't change the Etihad flights, or at least they told me that if I wanted to change, it had to be within the year of which it was booked. So I was really hobbled here, as if I wanted to go on the British Isles cruise, it was a year from now, and I had booked it earlier than that, of course. I had to keep the same flights, or else if I wanted a refund, they said there would be a 40% point penalty. So America really loves math on that, but the numbers spelled disaster, as the infamous or famous Scott Steiner had said. So I ended up keeping the JetBlue flight, the Etihad flight, over to Europe, and I just had to book a cheap flight to get from London to Rome. So that's what I did. I had to wait a few hours in London. The layover, I used a Plaza Premium Lounge, which wasn't too great, but it was a quieter place. It was complimentary food. So I took it and went to Rome, and the Hilton Rome airport exceeded my expectations. I stayed there for 2 nights. With my Hilton Diamond status, there was complimentary breakfast, although it might have been complimentary for gold status as well. I got access to an executive lounge, and I also got a room upgrade to the executive floor. The lounge was really nice, as it had complimentary alcohol, snacks, and even some entrees later at night, or more substantial food. Anyway, so it was a really nice lounge experience, and I thought the hotel was really nice, and it was a covered walk within the airport. So once I got through baggage claim, I followed signs to get to the hotel, and it was maybe a 15, 20-minute walk. And it was very close to the Leonardo Express train, which I later took to Rome. So it was nice to just walk out of the hotel. You're right at the airport. You're right at the train station. And you had lots of opportunities to explore.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect location for what you were going to do. Explore, 2 days prior to jumping on the cruise?
So I arrived the first day super tired. I didn't get much sleep on either of the flights. So I just took it easy the first day, stayed in the hotel, and I used the second day for exploration. So I took that Leonardo Express train to Rome. I saw the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and I went to a Hard Rock Cafe in Rome that wasn't too far from where I was anyway. I had an offer for 15 off of 25 at Hard Rock Cafe. So I used that for a lunch, or a late lunch on the go after all the exploration and walking. It was a good time to take a break, drink a lot of water, and I got a decent amount of food there at the Hard Rock Cafe. I uploaded a lot of photos from the cafe. They had a lot of Rome-themed guitars in there and a lot of different imagery. So it was a pretty cool place. Normally, I wouldn't eat on the go. I'd just have the hotel food. But since I was out for so long, I had breakfast at the hotel. It was a later lunch. So I got a lot of exploring, uploaded a lot of videos to YouTube of the Leonardo Express train, the train platform, the Colosseum, the Roman Forum. So I'm continuing my streak of uploading content every day on YouTube. That's what I'm aiming for. So lots of the travel videos are up there from Rome. And later on, listeners will get to see the cruise port stops that we'll get into later.
Yeah, it's a great reminder if folks are listening and haven't had a chance to check out your Hurdy Gurdy Travel YouTube channel to do that you're
Yes.
that you're featuring new content every day.
Yeah, aiming for it for sure, and have been pretty successful. And it was nice using the trains to get around. It was really cheap. If I were to have taken an Uber or a taxi to get to the town area, it would have been much more. And this is the theme throughout the entire Europe experience, that some of these trains were maybe $5 to $10 with a conversion to get around, compared to if I were to take the shuttle, even a shared shuttle from the airport to the cruise port, it would have been $80. So I was very happy to pay a few dollars to take one train and then use another train to get to the cruise port, which was Civitavecchia or Civitavecchia. I have a hard time pronouncing these things. So it was a good money saver to take the trains around, and was certainly inspired by Pari from Love on the Spectrum, who I recorded the conversation with, to take these trains.
Did she map that out for you? Did you map that yourself? Did you use an app? How did you figure out the local trains and where you need?
ChatGPT was very helpful. And I checked its work with the hotel people, and they confirmed that the information was accurate.
I love ChatGPT.
Yeah, really helpful for travel. I used it many times throughout the cruise. I asked it to suggest a walking tour for me to see some iconic locations. And I found out information while I was on the cruise. What are the dining times? What was going on? It wasn't always super accurate, but it was definitely a good place to start from.
Good tip there.
Yep. So off to the cruise port. I took the trains to the cruise port. There was a shuttle that you could pay to take the shuttle to the cruise port, but ChatGPT was suggesting it was about a 30-minute walk. So I took the scenic route, taking some photos. I went to the Michelangelo Fortress, which was on the way. That was interesting, a former military installation and maybe current as it was still locked off, but I got to sightsee on the way. Ended up being a lot of walking. Some of these days could easily get in 20,000 steps, but it was good exercise to walk off some of the cruise food later, I'm sure. So the cruise port was nice. It was far away from the airport for sure, but the trains helped me get there. So I had to get on the ship around 4 p.m. and I left the hotel early just to make sure that I had ample time in case there were some train delays. I got confused. I missed one. Whatever happened, if I got there early, it's not a problem. I just hang out at the cruise port rather than hanging out at the hotel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They let me on early, and right when I went on, I had the buffet, and the luggage came shortly after. So even though I got to the cruise port maybe around 1-ish.
So this would have been the first time you cruised on Princess, right? Because you status matched over?
Yes, it was the offer match to get the complimentary cruise with Princess. I didn't get any status with them. I just was able to offer match and get the complimentary cruise, taxes, fees, and package. But yes, it was the first Princess cruise, and the boarding process was pretty easy. It was waiting in line to get a bus to get to the cruise port that was complimentary, walk through a few lines, show your passport, and they gave me what they call a medallion. So they give you a lanyard, or at least they gave me a lanyard with the Premier package, and then there's this medallion that hangs from it that you can use to get into your room. You can use it in conjunction with their app and order drink service, food service. So if you're sitting in one of the dining areas and you want to order alcohol, for example, then they'll just bring it to you. They'll find you based on your medallion. So I think that was a cool feature. Virgin Voyages had something similar with a wristband type thing, and that would help you open your room door, but I don't think it had a tracking technology built into it. So that was a cool thing with Princess, although it was a little bit clunky because you could go in the app and it'll tell you a route to go to the dining areas or other places, but it wasn't always updating as I was walking around. But I was able to follow the directions and still get there anyway. And it was humorous that they had some sensors throughout the ship, and it would say go to the International Cafe on deck 5 and you can get complimentary coffee, tea there. That I had the package. It was any drink up to $20. And I would scan and they would ask, oh, what's your room number? Oh, what's your last name? And I'm thinking, if I scan the medallion, isn't that the whole point to not do the other things? So I don't know what the deal was with that, is if I'm like stealing others' medallions, even though my face is on the system, like I would peek over and I'd see my face on it.
Medallion theft of Princess Cruise.
Yeah, some petty theft there, I suppose. I really wanted that chai tea. Sorry.
So what were your... sounds like you got on and pretty easily and were able to get lunch right away. What were your initial impressions of the boat and service?
Yes, they were very kind coming to the table. Do you want any water? Do you want any drinks? So I was able to order using the package. Although they came to me, there were other times where they didn't, and I was still able to order. Even if I were to get something like a chai tea, I've had a lot of chai tea on the cruise for sure. So the service was nice. There were people approaching throughout asking you to upgrade. Oh, you want to add this wine? You want to add this dinner? So with the Premier package, I had what they called the casual dining, which was steamers, which was a seafood menu. And then there was barbecue menu. So there were the two casual dinings and the Irish pub. But there were others that you can add. So even with the specialty dining, which was the Italian restaurant, and I believe it was Crown Grill, which was advertised as a steakhouse, you can add another place that had crab legs and other seafood that would be add-ons. So there were a lot of opportunities. Oh, add this for 10, add this for 20. A lot of nickel diming, I think, going on, as was the case on some of the other cruises. Although with Virgin Voyages, it was all included, so that wasn't the case. But just say no to the extra stuff in this case. I just stayed with what I had in the package, which everybody has the buffet, and then I got the casual and the specialty dining. So that was nice. And the Italian place I went to, Sabatini's, it was interesting. I was in the restaurant for about 2 hours. And even at some point, the servers apologize and say, oh, everything is made one at a time, and it's made fresh and custom for your order. So it was a long time sitting in the restaurant, but I had my phone with me. The Wi-Fi was mostly good, so wasn't a big deal compared to the main dining room where maybe I'd be there for about an hour, 15 minutes.
Yeah, 2 hours is quite a long time if you're not constantly being served appetizers and secondary dishes and desserts. Yeah, that's quite some time. I guess, like you say, you don't have any place to be necessarily when you're on the boat.
Yeah, personally on land, I wouldn't put up with that. Me being in a restaurant for more than an hour, I think is just too much. Just want to get out, just get on with my life. So there's one drawback. Oh, the food quality was pretty good, but for me, I'll just try different things. I'll try the variety. I think of all the places, the Irish pub was the most interesting because they had live music. I believe the live music started around 7 p.m. That was multiple nights. I went there, you have the Irish themed music, and they have their own specialty menu that you can order from. So I think that was really interesting. I even uploaded some reels or YouTube shorts on that too. Although some of them, I think there was one that was like Ed Sheeran perfect, and they said that I couldn't monetize it because the melody was too similar. Oh gosh. So war on happiness there. Can't have that.
They should have included a Hurdy
right?
Gurdy, Justin. That would have been enough. And then,
Yeah, Pari Gurdy is the YouTuber I'd recommend for that. And of course, the band Cellar Darling, which I met and chatted with, I uploaded for a previous episode. So lots of hurdy-gurdy music, but unfortunately no hurdy-gurdies on the ship.
business
None that I know of. Some positives at Princess. I thought the housekeeping was pretty good and ambitious. There was even one time where I thought they were overly ambitious, where I had the do not disturb light on and they called and said, oh, we're just checking in to make sure you didn't want the morning service because the morning service is ending soon. And personally, I don't require or want or demand twice housekeeping a day, but it seemed like they really wanted to do it. So I said, okay, fine. I'll go to the International Cafe and come back. I went downstairs, let them do the room. So I think that's a cruise tip. Let housekeeping do their thing. Otherwise, they're going to keep asking. And this happened to me on other cruises too, especially I'm just by myself, like hang out in the room. It's okay. Don't really need housekeeping that often, but they seem to want to insist on doing it.
Did the Premier package include a tip for the housekeepers? I know that's often an expectation for cruises.
It did include gratuities and explain the gratuities are shared between all of the team members. So that was one benefit of the package is if I were to pay something like 20 a day in gratuities, maybe 20, 40 in Wi-Fi, it made sense to pay a little bit extra to get the additional things like the photos, the drinks, the dining options, and much more. So good value, I think, from the package.
Excellent.
Initially, it was interesting that the first day getting on the ship, there was the sailing away party, there was the meet the captain, welcome, like all those things that are pretty typical of ships, but it was quite packed. There were, I think, 4 days of stops right at the beginning of this one. So there wasn't a sea day in between. And I think after day 3, my feet were really hurting, but I was still determined to go out and do everything. So there were definitely lots of stops here. The first one was Livorno, which was in Italy. There were a lot of canals. There was another fortress that was there. The streets were really interesting. I went to a train station and took a train to Pisa. So I got to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which was really cool.
Mediterranean cruises, yeah, everything is quite close together, right? There's no need to sail very far to get to your first stop. What were did you have some videos of Livorno and Pisa that folks can check out?
Oh, yes, they will come on YouTube. I've had so much content throughout this trip, and then I ran the Pari episode and some clips. So I'm now catching up. I will upload the room tour on the 13th. May 13th is the plan, and then after that is going to be a lot of the port videos. Yeah, Livorno was really nice, and once again, the train to Pisa saved a lot of money, and I think it was only about $4 one way, so super, super cheap, and it was only about a 20 to 30 minute ride, I recall. So Livorno, really nice place. Lots of the canals were cool to see. Had to take a shuttle to get there. There were a few times where the cruise would stop in some sort of industrial area and you weren't always able to walk. So you had to take a shuttle to get there. And sometimes you had to pay to use the shuttle. So it's weird they didn't include it in the price. Because if you get out, you can't walk there. So you must take the shuttle and then you have to pay for it. So I think it was a little bit of nickel diming going on there. Although otherwise they might have just added it to the cost. But for me getting it comped, then that would have been covered.
I'll agree with you there on the nickel diming.
Yes, that was La Seine-sur-Mar, Toulon, France. Long name. It was a marina area, some interesting buildings. There was a big place where ships had been assembled that is now abandoned or not in service anymore. So I walked by that and saw that. Lots of art in the street, a big park area, and lots of murals. So it was interesting, although this was May 1st, as far as I remember, which was a Labor Day type holiday. So a bunch of businesses were closed. So some people were talking, oh, places are closed and not even getting off the ship. But there was still a lot to see and do. And personally, I'm almost never going to a restaurant and eating at the port stops because I figure I could just eat before I get off the ship and then eat when I get back on. Or if I get something, it's going to be something small or a drink. So some people in the comments were, oh, you should try the local cuisine when you're there. On the cruise ship, they tailored the menu to the local cuisine, and there were tons of options.
That's interesting. So prior to each stop, the chefs on the boat changed what their menu items were to match the next intended stop?
Yeah, I saw that in the main dining room. I saw that in the buffet area where they had like local kind of things on the menu.
That's fun. Is that common? I haven't been on a cruise for 30 years probably.
It's mixed. I've seen on other ships, oh, we have American night, Italian night, this night, that night, but not necessarily the local theming. So I saw that with Princess. It might be the case on others, but I remember it from this one. So yeah, it was Toulon, France. That was day 3. Day 4 was Barcelona, Spain. I really liked the architecture. There were the Gothic cathedral and section there, so you could see all of the older architecture. It's funny, a friend of mine has a YouTube channel called Cool Buildings, and I felt like the Cool Buildings guy going through this, taking all the photos, taking the videos, like, oh, look at this architecture. Oh, this is interesting. This is neat. So that was Barcelona, Spain, and I also went towards the metro area that was in the city center, and there were a lot of fountains there, tons of pigeons. There were people feeding pigeons everywhere. It was funny. I see a lot of pigeons in these open squares, but the amount of pigeons there was just wild in between the 2 fountains that they had in the city center. So it was really nice. Lots of marketplace areas, vendors. So there was definitely a lot to see in Barcelona.
Did you make it to La Familia Cathedral?
Perhaps. There were lots of cathedrals. So that could have been one of them.
I think that's the one that's been under construction for hundreds of years. It's just a fascinating depiction of nature and earth. Yeah, it's on one of my bucket lists to see when we make it over to Barcelona, which, yeah, we haven't done yet. We'll be close this summer.
Finally, day 5 was a sea day. Take a break from walking, sleep in a little bit, and the casino was open. And I skipped over it a little bit, but I went to the casino early on. You have to be in international waters for the casino to be open. You mentioned I got this special email that says, as a token of our gratitude or sorry for the inconvenience, but we're giving you $1,000 in free play. And it was very clearly indicated in the email that it was free play. I first tried to access the machine using my medallion, and I got an error. It said like EFT transfer error. So I couldn't access my account on the machines. I thought this might be the case because I had some adverse action on a previous cruise when I cruised with Holland America. It's a past episode. I wasn't able to do any room charges and my account was locked. And they didn't tell me why. And this time around, I went there, got the error. They said, oh, we don't really know why this is happening. We'll look into it. We'll get back to you in 24 hours. They didn't get back to me. I went up back to the casino in a future day. And they said, oh, there's a note on your account that your account is locked due to, they said, excessive room charges. And I had an idea that this was on Carnival, where I was room charging on Carnival, and they locked me out on Holland America because it's the same back end that many of these cruises participate in. So I explained to the manager that the reason I did the room charges was because I didn't bring cash with me on the ship and I wanted to gamble. I gambled with credit, charging to my room, the credit card attached, because I'm getting a rebate in points and miles. Otherwise, I'm just not going to gamble. So I'm giving you guys action. I don't see what the problem is. So there's a little bit of back and forth there. The manager even said, well, we would appreciate action rather than no action, but there's only so much we can do. Oh, it's the land side and we can't change that. We're sorry. So I asked, what about the free play? So I have this $1,000 in free play. Oh, we'll get back to you on that in about 24 hours. So they never got back to me. I went up and they said, you can't access the free play because your account is locked. And I said, okay, I understand my account is locked, but I don't see what that has to do with the free play. Because I have this email here that says free play. And, oh, we'll get back to you on that. I'm like, oh. So several days in, and I go back and they said, actually, it was applied as an onboard credit. I think there was a mistake that you weren't supposed to get 1,000 in free play. What do you mean? The email here writes, the email says free play, not onboard credit. Oh, it had to be onboard credit, and then you would charge to your room, and then it would offset that. But you can't charge to your room, so you'll have to use it for other things. So it felt like a massive bait and switch there. They sent an email saying 1,000 in free play, and then they're saying, oh, it was a mistake, or, oh, your account was locked, so now you can't have the free play. I said to them that I would accept promotional chips as a compromise, that I could play blackjack. So if you give me promotional chips, which I know they have, I'll take 1,000 in promotional chips and play through that. But unfortunately, no budging. The war on happiness continued, and I did not get that $1,000 in free play.
So you only had one option, Justin. This was your calling. It was time to whale out with your $1,000 room credit.
Yes, that's right. So I ended up getting a full body massage for the first time ever. I got a manicure and pedicure on a cruise ship for the first time ever, and got a lot of stuff from the gift shop. And I went in the photo area and I got JBL earbuds for $200. I looked on Amazon. They were the same as the list price, $199, although Amazon had it 25% off. But I got the earbuds as well. So I ended up using all of it. The massage was interesting. It was definitely like different sensations. I felt like ticklish at times. I felt more relaxed after the experience for sure. So that was nice. It was something different. And the manicure, pedicure also felt good. And I guess it is like better appearances, although I don't really care about that too much, but it was something to do. Otherwise, maybe some listeners have some idea for this first world problem of too many onboard credits, because I don't think it'd be appropriate to go to the gift shop and get all this clothing, because then I run into baggage limitations. Or if I get the stuff shipped home, but like how many clothes am I really going to get? Was I really going to donate like $700 worth of clothes to the local Goodwill?
Yeah.
So I ended up with the spa whaling
So
out.
what do you think, Justin? Are you going to be looking for massage opportunities in the future, whether on a cruise ship or at a casino? Has it changed your life?
No, if I could have taken the free play, I would have just taken the free play, because it's just like paying for it at that point. So if I had an option, I'm always taking the free play, but I don't think I'm going to go back and spend something like $150 for a massage. And this happened in the past when there were some Wynn credits where I booked with Fine Hotels and Resorts staying at Wynn, and there was the $100 off, but it was still expensive, and I just didn't do it. It just wasn't worth it to me. A nice experience, but not something that I would pay for. And it's similar with these flights, where the business class flight, flying with JetBlue Mint, was a really cool experience, but I wouldn't pay thousands of dollars to take that flight. But I was happy to use 75,000 MR to take the flight.
Yeah. It's interesting how we change our value based on how many points we have available. And you said earlier, we can always, or not always, but oftentimes we can cash those points out as well. So there is some monetary value, but I would agree that essentially $750, right? 75,000 points.
Yes. And I reached the cap as well. So then the other option would be like 0.6 of a cent per point, $450.
Yeah.
I'll take the business class flight at that point. That's fine. Or you're just holding on to all these MR for like 7 months and then cashing them out later. Like, it's okay. I'll take the flight.
And like you said, there's certainly opportunities. It's funny, the different partners and the booking arbitrage opportunities. So certainly you found a great one there with Etihad points to book Blue. But like you said, you ran into the classic Etihad problem of changing or canceling flights. They don't like that.
Yes. And I explained to them the situation that the cruise changed. It wasn't me just voluntarily flaking out. Like, I could send you guys the email saying that they canceled the cruise, and they still wouldn't play ball. And they say, oh, it's a voluntary change. And British Airways said the same thing too, because I had the flight. And then they're saying, oh, no, it's a voluntary change because it's not a problem with our service. It was them doing that. I'm like, come on. Yeah, pay the toll, the $50. And then I had to pay for this ETA. I believe it was the electronic visa. That was like a $10 fee for going into the UK. So it's like, all right, just get nickel dime some more. So we raided the gift shop. Otherwise, I was going to play video poker. It was possible to get $400 in free play if you played through 10,000 in coin in. So I thought that was pretty cool as you gained tier with them. So it was one tier per $5 wagered, and 10,000 in play would give you 2,000 points. So America really loves math on that. It was a 97% return to player jacks or better game, triple play for $1.25 times 3. So it was $3.75 per hand with the 5 credits. So I would have played that, charged to room, and potentially used Princess gift cards to pay off, as that's a possibility. If I say a possibility, because the reps at customer service have to enter the gift card information, and they might make up rules about how much you can actually redeem. So I didn't, thankfully, purchase gift cards beforehand, because my idea was I'm going to try a lesser denomination first, see if it works, and then buy other ones once they give me the assurance that it would work. So I'm glad I didn't make that mistake, because if I bought, say, like $500 in Princess gift cards, then what was I going to do with that? So I didn't get doubly screwed on
back to the
that.
gift shop.
More t-shirts.
More manicure. More pedicure.
Yeah, that would be an eccentric thing, to get 2 pedicures and manicures.
I haven't done that.
Yeah, and I do many eccentric things, but I think I would draw the line at that. Like that would seem odd. Maybe I'd go into the facials next. I guess that would be the next step. So that's a quick thing on the casino. So unfortunately, I just got backed off there. I think like a bait and switch there. So that's not really good for my confidence in Princess in the future, but I don't see booking one unless they have another offer match deal. And you never know, because these things tend to come back, right?
You're right. As we've learned from other casino status matching, you just keep on going sometimes. And it sounds like you do similar things with cruise offers.
Yeah, we had day 6 was Gibraltar. I thought that was really interesting in the UK. I walked to an area with a cemetery, took some videos of that. There was a lot of World War II stuff around, so a lot of history there, a big marketplace area, and walked to the gardens area. That was a pretty far walk, but there were lots of flowers, trees, other foliage, and at the top of the gardens area was a wildlife refuge. So I took a video of the many types of animals in there. So it was cool to see lemurs, all these exotic birds, reptiles, bats, and much more. Really cool area in Gibraltar.
Did you see any rocks or a big rock while you're in Gibraltar?
Oh, yes. There were lots of rocks, ROCKS, but not to be confused with the Dungeons and Dragons ROC, rock, bird. Did not see any ROCs, but I did see the ROCKS.
Yeah, the classic rock of Gibraltar.
Yes, and the apes were allegedly inside of the rock areas, and there were a lot of signs of don't feed the apes. I don't want to do that. Big fines for feeding the apes, by the way.
Yeah, strict diets, I guess. Maybe there.
Yes, even in the wildlife sanctuary, it says animals may bite, stay away. They had like areas roped off so you could see them, but you're supposed to be layers back. It was similar to the wolf sanctuary that I went to outside of Lancaster. They had all kinds of different levels of separation
for your protection, just like your recent FNBO Amtrak.
Yes, while I was at sea, I applied for the Amtrak card with the elevated bonus of 40,000 point sign-up bonus, which is allegedly worth around $1,000. I wanted to wait until the end of the month so my credit scores would rebound and be stronger, because I had some balances that closed, which negatively impacted my credit scores. But unfortunately, the application went to pending. A few days later, it said denied, and I got home, got a letter in the mail, and it says that you're denied. Call in. So I call in, and they said, oh, the application was auto denied because it was an application made outside of the country. And I explained, yes, I was traveling, but I still have a U.S. address. So can you please reconsider the application? Oh, no, we can't reconsider it. You're just going to have to apply again. Okay, what about the 40,000 point offer? Oh, no, you'd have to reapply under the new offer. Oh, wow. So I got denied by FNBO. Make your applications while you're stateside, not overseas. But I figured this was really the only chance I had at it, because my scores were heavily hit after a lot of shenanigans in previous months. There's really no other choice than doing it on the cruise.
Yeah, travel hacker's dilemma strikes in a different kind of way.
Denied. Yes, we had a Lisbon, Portugal, which was day 7 and the final day. I thought that was nice. Went up a lot of hills, saw some castles, saw a lot of market areas, big marina section, marketplace on the ground celebrating what seemed to be a spring or summer festival. and a lot of boats at the marina area. So it was really a lot to see. I thought Lisbon was a really cool stop.
It sounds like it. I've heard great things about Portugal. Certainly, again, it's one of those things where what's on your list? Everything's on my list. But yeah, with Portugal's fairly close proximity and our good friends at TAP offering oftentimes pretty good deals on points and miles to get there. Yeah, I think it'd be a great place to visit coming up here.
And a big benefit of the cruise, just getting to see so many different locations rather than just being stuck with one. So for the one big flight overseas, get to see all these different stops on the cruise.
Yeah. A couple of folks say that their Mediterranean cruise was something like that, where they got to see a bunch of different places for a short amount of time, and it helped them identify where they wanted to go next for longer periods of time. So whether it's a country or a city or both, where they really enjoyed it, like the culture, like the food, like the people, hopefully all of those things, come back and spend a few more days there.
Yeah, some of these Caribbean cruises, you might go 2 or 3 stops and it's a 5-day cruise or a little bit longer. So yes, the Mediterranean, get a lot more stops in. So after that, there were 2 sea days. So that was when I used most of these credits. So I didn't want to book things on the same day of exploring. So the other 2 days I did the massage, I had the pedicure and manicure, tried some more of the dining locations I hadn't tried. It was nice. It was good to close out with the 2 sea days. It would have been nice if there was more space in between the destinations, like 4 stops at once, I think was a lot. Especially all the walking, my feet were just hurting after the fact. But I definitely wanted to explore and not just miss a location, let's say, because, I was just walking a lot yesterday. So I got to unwind on the last 2 days and it wasn't as busy. Got off the ship at Southampton outside of London. So it says here Southampton and it has parentheses London by the cruise. I posted Southampton, London in parentheses, and some people are saying, it's not really London. It is indeed outside of London, but it has a similar theme to it. So I got off the cruise ship. I tried to stay on the ship as long as possible because there was no rush. I had 2 nights in Southampton. So I waited for the final call. Some security came by and said, everybody has to leave in 5-10 minutes. So I stayed on the cruise ship as long as possible to avoid all the traffic on the way out, let other people figure out their taxis and ride share, and hopefully it'd be easier for me. But unfortunately, the Uber took 20-25 minutes to get to the cruise port, even after all that time. So it was still somewhat busy or a low amount of drivers. And I figured the Uber is cheaper than the taxi, but this time it took quite some time. So maybe one of these times I'll pick the taxi rather than the Uber after seeing what the taxi rates are compared to Uber. But usually the taxis are more expensive. So I chatted with some of the people outside. I used my phone while I was waiting, so not a big deal. I got to the Southampton Hilton, and I had 2 separate reservations. It was originally only going to be 1 reservation, or 1 night, 1 reservation, but I booked a second one. So I asked them, could I please keep the same room for both of the nights? They said yes. I had to wait until 2 p.m. to check in. So I had to wait a few hours in the lobby. So I worked on some video editing and uploading things to YouTube, some to-do items, some powerful portals, some other shenanigans, even overseas, and eventually got in the room. I thought the room was decently spacious. They gave me a drink voucher, and I asked them about using Hilton gift cards. So I asked them, could I just use a gift card at the restaurant? Do they accept the Hilton gift cards? Because I have all these gift cards clanging around from months ago with American Express credits for Hilton that I purchased gift cards with, which no longer seems to be a thing, or the gift cards are out of stock. But I asked about it and they said, yeah, just charge it to the room and then you could use the gift cards when you're checking out. I took them at their word. I charged it to the room. The next morning I come by and say, hey, I'd like to use the Hilton gift card. We talked about this yesterday. And it was the same person at the desk. And the manager came and said, yes, we accept these. That's no problem. I tried to use the Hilton gift card and they said, oh, sorry, the night shift manager checked you out. So it's already charged to your credit card on file. I said, no, I spoke to you yesterday that I didn't want this to happen, that I had the gift cards. That was the whole point of the conversation. And then she starts talking about, oh, did someone tell you yesterday there's another thing that someone else is going to have your room for the second night of the reservation? So wait, what? You said that the room was good for the 2 nights. And I received notification in the app and I have the room assignment. And why would you want housekeeping to come in and clear the room for someone else? Surely there's another room they can have. For a rare situation, I said, could you please call the manager? So the manager came over, said you could keep the room. And then he said, we'll issue a refund back to your credit card. And then we'll charge your gift card for the dining amounts. So all was well with the world. But I thought terrible customer service there, that they would just give up my room to someone else, even though it was already promised and it was the same attendant. And then I've never heard this getting checked out overnight. So that was really bizarre.
I think it's both bad customer service, but also bad business decisions. As you said, why would you want housekeeping to come in and serve the whole room if they can just keep you in there instead of having to turn it over for another guest? Yeah, not a lot of thought behind that, apparently. Maybe the night manager is the night manager for a reason.
And I wanted to stay there at the cruise port to not be traveling so much after getting off the ship, because typically it's the waking up early. I feel pretty tired, so I didn't want to navigate all this transportation and get closer to the airport. But on second thoughts, maybe it would have been best to just stay in Southampton for one night and then have transportation from there to get closer to the airport for night 2 and potentially save some money too. Because there was a bus that you could take to the airport, but then it would have been like $15 or so with Uber to get to the bus area. And then the bus would have been around 20 or 25. It would take a little bit more time. So it was a little bit closer there versus the Uber rate that was around 100, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe could have broken it up and gotten closer to the airport for the day 2. So I stayed at the hotel for day 1. I was pretty tired and got some extra rest. The food was good. The gift cards worked out. And I asked the manager, could I just go to the front desk after I go to the restaurant and then just resolve the charges with the gift card? And he said yes. So, okay, you could have told me that to begin with and saved the little hassle there. If you guys issue these gift cards, I have to use them in some way, right? Like, we already charged
I don't know that
card.
they agree with that statement, Justin, and you not use those gift cards. So
yeah, it's like it's coming out of that employee's paycheck or something. Oh, the night manager checked you out. Yeah, so it's probably just more incompetence, lack of training, just like not good customer service. There was never even an apology either about the whole thing. It's just like they just resolved it. So I don't know whether that's like more of a UK thing rather than or more like US customer service. It seems to be friendlier on average is my experience, especially at places like Wynn Las Vegas. They're like super accommodating there. It's like a higher standard of service at Wynn compared to just like random hotels. But day 2 was nice there. I walked out of the hotel and there was lots to see, lots of memorials, lots more interesting architecture. There were some nature walks I went on, a very large park, pond with lots of ducks. So I got some duck videos. There were some seagulls I got throughout the cruise. So lots of nature and birds. I know there was some rumor that I hated nature, that I'm not a fan of birds, but obviously those things are false. And those rumors are very malicious to cue the Gilbert Gottfried roast of Bob Saget. A lot of rumors going on around there. Whatever may have happened in 1990 with Bob Saget, for those in the know. But unfortunately, Gottfried and Saget are no longer with us, but the comedy remains. A little bit of a tangent there. But exploring Southampton, it was cool. Have like the city or town part of it, the nature part of it. So there was definitely lots to see. And I even went to a Starbucks and they accepted gift card balance in the Starbucks app. So that was really interesting, as I've had this Starbucks balance clanging around from some past plays. So it was nice to use the gift card balance and not have to use like cash money, actual money.
And no Paneras in London, huh? So
Unfortunately, no sip club for me. I had my sip club at sea, but not at the Southampton and not at the destinations. Yeah, it was nice overall. I had to wake up early, go to the airport, and fly back. I flew back to Boston and then took a flight from Boston to Philadelphia. Hung out in the Sapphire Lounge for a while at Boston. Went pretty well. So overall, happy about the experience. Not great service at the Hilton. And we had some free play issues on the cruise. Major issues with that anyway. The Hilton stuff was resolved, but the Princess was not. I was just forced into the onboard credit. Although some have encouraged me to file a complaint. I'm not sure if I would get anything out of that, but it might be worth a shot of 5 or 10 minutes to fill out a form and maybe get something back.
That seems like a low amount of effort there. Express your disappointment. Did you end up playing at all in the casino? You didn't, right?
No, I couldn't. Yeah, my account was locked. That was it. I didn't even bring cash with me to play because I don't want to enter into a game where I just don't have an edge. That's been my thing with gambling. I'm only going to play when I have an edge. I've waived that for rare social occasions in the past. I remember at a past Zork Fest, someone said, "Hey, I would just like you to play blackjack and talk me through some basic strategy." So I did that for a little bit with some people. So it was like giving up just a little bit there. But yeah, I'm not going to be playing video poker straight up with my money on a 97% return to player game or playing the table games, but I didn't even bring the cash anyway, because the idea was to bring very little cash or just like sub $100 to not have so much money going off the cruise and then dealing with
You mean
customs.
you didn't get money from the ATM in the casino, Justin? That
Oh, those fees, I imagine those would be pretty high. Or a cash advance. You can't charge to your room, but you can always
yeah.
cash advance a
I,
credit card.
I think it might be worthwhile. I mean,
Ugh.
especially since you not status match, offered match, but based on a casino. And you could write them and say, hey, look, I wanted to give action, but you guys locked my account. I didn't have the opportunity. And I think you guys missed out and I did too. And maybe there's an opportunity for us to make this right in the future. Maybe there's another cruise that I could do this on if you guys can get my account sorted out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be restored on the casino side because it's a different department, but maybe Princess would say, okay, we'll process a refund of a certain amount, or yeah, we'll give you a return offer for a cruise. Something to that extent might make sense, writing them, or a CFBP complaint if they still exist. Maybe the listeners can ask ChatGPT if Princess is based in the States, if that matters, or they're just going to, oh, it was out of Europe, so we can't do anything.
So after the Southampton stays and finally getting your gift cards to work, how did you get back to the States?
I ended up taking Uber from the hotel to the airport, which was a little expensive, but as I mentioned, it was early. And the difference would have been maybe like 30, 35 versus about 100. So I ended up just paying the toll. So in the future, if I were to do it again, I would take the bus to closer to the airport, stay a night at that hotel and do it that way. But this was because the cruise was really changed. I had to add that second night. Yeah, I guess we just end up having to pay some incidental expenses, but those are also coming from some cash back on credit cards, some bank account bonuses, statement credits, and much more. Yes, not completely free, but very low cost overall.
And then Blue Mint back, right? From London to...
Yep, JetBlue Mint back. So that was an earlier in the day flight. I believe that was 8:30 in the morning. That was the only option. So I had the breakfast on the plane, and then they brought food about an hour and a half before the plane landed. So that was nice of them. And yeah, the Mint is really nice. I think the service was good there. They were attentive. They were coming back multiple times. Is there anything we can do for you? The 2 or 3 food services throughout, the drinks included, and a lie flat seat. So it went down, although I'm big for it. So I had to lay on my side. Couldn't really sleep. I think it was just too big, but it was okay. So I was able to rest on my side, and the Wi-Fi was very good throughout. Yeah, JetBlue Mint. I'm looking forward to doing that again for similar trips. I've also done JFK to Vegas. I had some Mint upgrade certificates in the past, so I used it for that. But it was really nice going overseas because personally, I don't want to fly economy going overseas. I just get really cramped. A 6 to 8 hour flight, I think it's just too much. I'll do economy domestic or premium economy domestic, but overseas flying in business for sure.
Did you have a preference on the day flight versus, I think you...
Oh, yes. I'd almost always rather fly in the afternoon because it allows me more time to get to the airport. I don't have to wake up as early. I get the hotel breakfast. I just don't like to rush, especially I'm leaving Philadelphia, my home airport. I always try for afternoon flights, and even leaving 3, 4 p.m. departing flights. It's fine. It's usually when I fly, I'm tired after the flights, so I'm not going to be exploring much on that arrival day, so it's okay. Typically when I go to Vegas, I'll be in Vegas maybe around 10 or 11 local time, check in, go to sleep, and then I'll be good to explore and do things the next day. So no rush for me to take a 6 a.m. flight, for instance, and try to get every minute out of the trip. So I thought the 8:30 was early, especially with the transportation. So that ended up being me waking up 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and then, yeah, and taking the transportation. I always want to get to the airport early too, to not only use the lounge, but just give time in case things happen, some traffic delays, road closures, extra time at security, extra time checking in, all kinds of things can happen. So I like to get in the airport and be there at least 2 hours before the flight departs.
Yeah, I know international folks, the rules of the road are something like 3 hours, but I think with experienced travelers, 2 hours is still a good bet and gives you some time and maybe some lounges. It depends on what lounge you have access to. I know a lot of folks would say that if they have access to some of the premier Middle East lounges, for example, spending the whole day there can be enjoyable.
I went to the Plaza Premium Lounge with Priority Pass. The one on the departure was nice out of, I believe, Terminal 2. At London Heathrow, it was breakfast time, and they had a lot out there. It was more spacious than the initial lounge. the initial Plaza Premium Lounge that was super crowded. I think that might have been in Terminal 5. I don't remember right now, but the original one wasn't so good, but the departing one was much better.
Sounds like an eventful trip and mostly an enjoyable one. A few hiccups along the way, both before and during, but still a good trip overall, and some opportunities, like you said, to see some places you hadn't seen before and maybe ideas for where to go to next.
Yes, and it was really nice to meet Pari in Boston. That's Pari Kim from Love on the Spectrum. You can follow her on Instagram. Purple Princess Pari is the username, and she was on season 3 of the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum. And I know many listeners, they tuned into the show because she was on here, because I mentioned that she'd be coming on. So a lot of fans, a lot of support for sure.
Very good.
Yeah, you liked her YouTube video. You did an impression of, what was it? We're on Amtrak. We're on Amtrak.
That sounds like it did. Yeah. It was different, right? It was less points and miles and more just overall enthusiasm for travel and trains, of course, in particular. So it was a nice change of pace. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. I liked the fee fi fo fum too.
Oh, yes. I mentioned Giant Pennsylvania, and she said fee fi fo fum. So that was funny. Definitely on brand for the princess.
Absolutely.
Scene, right?
Absolutely.
And 100% coincidental that it happened to be a princess cruise. This princess cruise was booked well before I knew she existed. Yeah. Oh, but you didn't do the impression, though. Can you do the impression for listeners?
We're on Amtrak.
Oh, it's like, we're on Amtrak.
It's like, we going to Sizzler. I think that's White Men Can't Jump reference from way back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
back from the 90s, right?
Not that I don't want to think about how long the 90s ago were now, but anyway.
All right. Closing out. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for future episodes. Closing announcements. Ticket sales for Zorkfest 2025, a miles, points, and gambling event, are live at zorkfest.travelzork.com. I hope to see you at Zorkfest 2025 in Las Vegas from December 5th through the 7th at the M Resort Casino Hotel. I will also be speaking at Chicago Seminars, Hyatt Regency O'Hare, November 7th through the 9th, 2025. Use promo code Hurdy Gurdy, one word, when buying a ticket to support me. Also join me October 24th through the 26th, 2025 for Chicago Seminars at Holiday Inn Chicago Oak Brook, new location this year. Use the promo code I must have a promo code 20 for $20 off tickets. Visit meetup.com/Philly miles and points to RSVP for monthly Greater Philadelphia travel, credit miles and points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The next meetups are May 17th and June 22nd, 2025, and there's a good chance that Darren will be in attendance. Find a link in the show notes. For more content between episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Subscribe to Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on YouTube, where you can subscribe for daily content, including travel videos, podcast clips, community, and bonus content. Search Hurdy Gurdy Travel on subscribestar.com or become a channel member on YouTube to support my efforts starting at $5 a month tip jar level. Receive special perks at higher subscriber levels, including private one-on-one conversations and asking podcast guests your questions. Find links and more at hurdygurdytravel.com. I'm now an affiliate with Card Pointers. Use my affiliate link, cardpointers.com/hurdygurdytravel, for a discount on annual and lifetime plans. Card Pointers has a great app and browser tools to automatically activate credit card linked offers from various banks to maximize your savings. The website udio.com, created the podcast intro and outro music. It's not me singing. The AI features of the website Descript helped me edit and improve audio quality. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.
Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.